Run from your family right now. The phrase, hastily scrawled on a crumpled piece of paper, seemed to dance before my eyes. I, Peyton, a 68-year-old woman who always valued order and routine, was sitting in Dr. Miller's office, the family doctor for over 2 decades, with a note in my hands that would turn my world upside down. He handed me the folded paper, his hands trembling, his usually calm blue eyes now wide with a look that frightened me. "Don't go home, Peyton. Please, just go. I'll call you." His voice was an urgent, almost inaudible whisper, but laden with a gravity that chilled me to the bone. I didn't understand anything. My family, my husband, Richard, whom I've been married to for 45 years, my children, David and Emily, and my grandchildren, who were the light of my life. What did he mean by run? Was it a bad joke? But Dr. Miller was never one for jokes. He was a serious, dedicated man, and the expression on his face was one of pure terror. Confusion mingled with a growing fear in my chest. I knew him well enough to know he wouldn't act this way without an extremely serious reason. I stood up from the chair, my legs feeling like jelly. The office, which once seemed like a safe haven, now exuded an aura of imminent danger. Dr. Miller walked me to the door, looking around with a paranoia that only increased my anguish. "Go to a hotel, to a friend's house, anywhere, but not home," he repeated, almost pushing me out. With every step I took away from the office, the feeling that something terrible was about to happen intensified. My life, which until then was an open book of suburban tranquility in Springfield, Illinois, suddenly turned into a psychological thriller. I needed to understand. I needed to know what was happening. If you've ever felt betrayed by those you least expected, or if an unexpected twist changed your life, leave your like and subscribe to the channel to follow this story that will keep you hooked from beginning to end. I drove my old blue sedan, a Chevrolet Impala that Richard insisted on calling a relic, aimlessly. Dr. Miller's note burned in my purse. "Don't go home." The words echoed in my mind, mixing with images of my family. Richard, always so practical and reserved. David, my eldest son, a successful lawyer, but with an explosive temper. Emily, my sweet daughter, who seemed to live in a world of her own. What could they have done? Or what was happening to them? I stopped at a hotel on the outskirts of town, a discreet place I had never noticed before. The check-in was done under a false name, Sarah Johnson, a precaution Dr. Miller had whispered before I left. His paranoia was becoming mine. In the room, the television playing a local news channel filled the oppressive silence, but my mind was far from any report. I could only think of the note, the urgency in the doctor's eyes. As night fell, my cell phone rang. It was Dr. Miller. I answered on the first ring, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would leap from my chest. "Peyton, are you safe?" he asked, his voice still tense. "Yes, I'm at a hotel. What's going on? Please tell me." He hesitated for a moment, and I could hear his heavy breathing on the other end of the line. "I can't say much over the phone, but I need you to know. Your husband, Richard, and your children, David and Emily, are involved in something very dangerous. They are using you, Peyton. Using you for something terrible." The revelation hit me like lightning. Richard? My children? The idea was absurd, unthinkable. "Using me for what?" I managed to ask, my voice choked. "Peyton, you have a very high life insurance policy, don't you?" Dr. Miller asked, and the question caught me by surprise. Yes, Richard was always very careful with finances and insisted on a robust policy. "For the family's future," he would say. They are planning an accident, a fatal accident for you, Peyton, to collect the insurance money." The line went dead for me. The world spun. It couldn't be. My own children, my husband, the family I loved, and for whom I dedicated my life, planning my death? The pieces of the puzzle began to fit together, painfully and frighteningly. Richard's recent arguments about the need to update the insurance, David's sudden interest in helping with my routine exams, Emily's insistence that I go to that appointment with Dr. Miller, which she had scheduled for me. It all seemed innocent at the time, but now, in the light of that macabre revelation, every detail turned into cold, calculated evidence. Dr. Miller continued, his voice lower now, as if afraid of being overheard. I found out by chance, Peyton. David pressured me to sign some papers, saying it was to optimize your health plan. But what he wanted was a statement that you had a terminal health condition, something that would justify a sudden and unsuspicious death. I refused, of course. And that's when I realized what was happening. He told me that David, with his legal expertise, had meticulously orchestrated a plan using Richard's influence and Emily's naivety to isolate me and prepare the ground for the accident. The pain of betrayal was excruciating, but anger began to boil within me. How could they? How could the family I raised, whom I loved unconditionally, wish me dead for money? I wasn't just a victim. I was a woman who had been underestimated, and they were about to discover how dangerous it was to mess with a mother who had sacrificed everything for them. Dr. Miller's voice on the other end of the line, describing my own family's macabre plan, made my blood boil. The pain of betrayal was immense, but it was quickly replaced by a cold, calculating fury. Richard, David, Emily, how could they? I raised them, loved them, sacrificed my own dreams to ensure their well-being. And now, they wanted me dead for money. The image of my family, once a safe haven, transformed into a nest of vipers. Dr. Miller, my voice came out firmer than I expected. I need your help. I can't go home, but I also can't just disappear. They need to pay for this. He sighed. Peyton, it's dangerous. David is a shrewd lawyer and Richard was always a man of few words, but decisive actions. They won't give up easily. I knew that. But the idea of letting them get away with it, of allowing them to escape such cruelty, was unbearable. I spent the rest of the night at the hotel, not sleeping, but planning. My mind, which they considered old and naive, was sharper than ever. I needed proof, something irrefutable to expose their plan. Dr. Miller had mentioned papers, documents David tried to make him sign. That would be my first clue. But how to get them without raising suspicion? I remembered a copy of the house key that Emily had given me for emergencies. An emergency indeed. I wouldn't go home as a victim, but as a hunter. Anger gave me a strength I hadn't felt in years. They had underestimated the woman who raised them, and that would be the biggest mistake of their lives. If you've ever felt the need to fight for justice, even against all odds, like this video and share it with someone who needs a dose of courage. The next morning, with the sun still rising over the rooftops of Springfield, I drove back to my house. I didn't enter through the front door, which Richard and David would certainly be monitoring. Instead, I parked a few blocks away and approached from the back, using the key Emily had given me for the garden door. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from adrenaline. I was in my own home, but I felt like an intruder, a spy. The house was silent. Richard must have already left for his accounting office, and Emily for her volunteer work at the library. David, who worked from home some days, would probably still be sleeping. I moved like a shadow, each step calculated, each breath held. My goal? Richard's office, where he kept all the important family documents. I knew he was methodical, that everything would be in organized folders. I found the folder labeled Insurance and Family Assets. My hands trembled as I opened it. There they were amidst old policies and wills, the documents Dr. Miller had mentioned. A new life insurance policy with my name as the primary insured and Richard, David, and Emily as beneficiaries. The amount was astronomical, much higher than I imagined. And most shockingly, there was an addendum, a clause specifying full payment in case of accidental or sudden death. Beside it, a series of emails exchanged between David and an insurance agent discussing the policy optimization and the celerity of the indemnification process. The coldness and cruelty were palpable in every word. They weren't just planning my death, they were calculating every financial detail. With the documents in hand, I left the house as silently as I entered. The weight of that proof was almost unbearable. I had confirmation that my family was willing to sacrifice me for money. The pain was deep, but the determination to make them pay was even greater. I called Dr. Miller, my voice choked, but firm. "I have the proof, doctor. They are guilty." He advised me to go directly to the police station, but I knew it wouldn't be that simple. David was an influential lawyer, and Richard had connections in town. I needed more than just documents. I needed a plan. As I drove back to the hotel, an idea began to form in my mind. Emily, my sweet Emily. She was always the most sensitive, the most empathetic. Could she be involved without knowing the true extent of the plan? Or perhaps, was she being manipulated, just like me? I decided to take a risk. I needed an ally inside the house, someone who could help me unravel the darker details of David's plan. I called Emily, using a prepaid phone number I bought on the way. "Emily, it's me, your mother. I need you to meet me. It's urgent, and it's about Dad and David." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Mom, where are you? Dad is worried. He said you disappeared." Her voice sounded genuinely distressed. "I know, dear, but I can't explain it over the phone. Meet me at the public library coffee shop in an hour, and don't tell anyone you're going to see me. No one." Her hesitation was brief, but she agreed. I knew I was putting Emily at risk, but it was a risk I was willing to take. If there was a chance she wasn't as cruel as the others, I had to try. I arrived at the public library coffee shop in Springfield, Illinois, with a heavy heart. Emily was sitting at a table in the corner, nervously stirring an iced tea. Her eyes, usually so bright, were dull and worried. "Mom, what's going on? Dad and David are furious, saying you disappeared and took important documents." Her voice was a mix of confusion and divided loyalty. I took a deep breath, the folder with the evidence heavy on my lap. "Emily, I need you to listen to me with an open mind. What I'm about to tell you will be difficult, but it's the truth." I began to explain, showing her the life insurance documents, David's emails, the accidental death clause. At first she denied it, her eyes wide with disbelief. "No, Mom, Dad would never do that. David told me it was for your security, to ensure your future." But as I presented the evidence, Emily's facade of denial began to crumble. Tears streamed down her face. They made me believe you were becoming senile, Mom, that we needed to protect your assets. David told me it was to prevent you from spending everything and being left destitute." Emily's confession was painful, but revealing. She had been manipulated, just like me, but in a different way. Richard and David had exploited her naivety and her love for me to coerce her. They told me it was for the good of the family, that you were putting everything at risk. The pain in her voice was genuine. At that moment, I knew I wasn't alone. Emily, my sweet Emily, was not an accomplice, but a victim. "I didn't know, Mom. I swear I didn't know they wanted to hurt you." She hugged me, crying. "What do we do now?" I had my ally. If you've ever felt manipulated by someone close to you, comment below how you overcame that situation. Your experience can help others. With Emily by my side, the game changed. She, with her access to the house and Richard and David's routine, became my eyes and ears. Together, and with Dr. Miller's cautious guidance, we devised a plan. Emily returned home, acting as if she was worried about my disappearance, but secretly collecting more evidence and recording conversations. She discovered that Richard had even bought a new car, a luxurious Cadillac, with the money he expected to receive from the insurance. Their greed was even greater than I imagined. The final confrontation happened on a Sunday at what they thought would be a reconciliation lunch at our house. Richard and David were visibly annoyed by my absence, but tried to maintain a facade of concern. "Peyton, where have you been? You had us worried," Richard said, with a tone that no longer fooled me. "I've been thinking," I replied, my voice calm but laden with a coldness that made them shiver, thinking about the future of our family and about my life insurance. The mention of the insurance made David choke on his water. "Mom, this isn't the time. We're just happy you're back." It was then that Emily, with a courage that filled me with pride, placed a small recorder on the table. "Dad, David, can you explain to Mom what this health plan optimization you kept talking about is?" The silence that followed was deafening. Richard turned pale, and David tried to cover it up, but the recording of their conversations, which Emily had obtained, began to play, revealing every detail of the plan. Richard's voice, cold and calculating, discussing how to solve the problem of my longevity to access the money. Anger erupted. Richard and David tried to intimidate me, threaten me, but I had the proof, and Emily was there to testify. The police, whom Dr. Miller had alerted, arrived in minutes. The facade of a perfect family crumbled amidst sirens and handcuffs. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Richard and David were arrested, facing charges of attempted murder and fraud. The scandal shook Springfield, Illinois, and the perfect family they so cherished was publicly exposed. Emily, although devastated by her father's and brother's betrayal, found a strength I never imagined she had. She testified against them, a courageous decision that freed her from manipulation. I, Peyton, at 68 years old, found myself starting over. The house, which was once a symbol of a life I thought was happy, was now a reminder of the betrayal. I decided to sell it and move to a small apartment in Charleston, South Carolina, a place I had always dreamed of visiting. With the life insurance money, which I now controlled, and the support of Emily and Dr. Miller, I began to live the life I always wanted. Emily visits me regularly, and our relationship, built on truth and overcoming, is stronger than ever. She is thriving in her work and is finally free from the manipulative shadow of her father and brother. The pain of betrayal never completely disappears, but the joy of having found the truth and having a daughter who truly loves me is infinitely greater. I learned that family is not just about blood ties, but about loyalty, respect, and unconditional love, and that sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living well, with dignity and peace. Dr. Miller, my guardian angel, remains a dear friend. He taught me that courage can come from the most unexpected places. If Peyton's story inspired you to never give up on the truth and to fight for what you believe in, leave your comment below. Share your own experiences and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories of overcoming.